First off, I want to talk to you about a murder that occurred of a homeless man. He was not only a homeless man, but he was an operator. He worked his way around in the area. He met people in other homeless camps. He had a system in place. And he would just go throughout the community ripping off people wherever he could. He happened to meet up with a Christopher Taylor and a Christina Sluss, who had just come here from South Carolina, and he said, "Hey, I got a system. You got a car? We're good. You drive me to the bank, I open up an account, I get a debit card, and then we'll go to an ATM, withdraw the money, and we'll have cash, and we'll rip off the banks." Well, they did this over a period of time, but he got to be a nuisance, and he got to aggravating Christopher Taylor. And he came by on a Saturday morning, and we got to go to the bank, we got to go to the bank, we got to go to the bank, and Christopher just had a short temper, and he had enough. So our Christopher Taylor here started to beat the victim. He beat the victim first with a frying pan. And apparently he broke the handle of the frying pan, and this was in the city of Winter Haven, as I'll get to in a minute. He beat the victim with a frying pan, and that broke, and he beat the victim with another frying pan. And then he tells his girlfriend, Christina, "Hey, go downstairs and get Gary, my brother, and tell him to bring me the bat." So Christina goes downstairs, tells Gary Christopher wants the bat. And he started to beat our victim with the bat. Chris beat him and beat him, and our victim passed out. Well, then he comes to, and he begs Christopher, "Please don't beat me anymore. Please let me go." Well, that didn't work so well, so they started beating him and beating him and beating him some more. Oh, by the way, did I tell you that he had Christina turn on some music to beat the victim by? It's ICP, Insane Clown Posse. So now we have music to beat the victim by, and he beats the victim unconscious again. When he comes through, he's screaming and crying and hollering, "I didn't mean to make you mad. I didn't mean to hurt you. Please, let me go, let me go." Gary has to talk to one of the neighbors and say, "Hey, don't worry. It's just Chris and his girlfriend fighting downstairs." Well, in fact, what it was our victim screaming and screaming and screaming. Well, the victim tries to leave the house. Christopher tackles him and then begins to choke him. And he chokes him unconscious. And he starts gurgling, according to Christina, and he stops moving. Well, immediately, the three of them, to include Gary, put our victim in garbage bags, and they put him in the bathtub. Well, what's interesting about that is, well, you know, it's been a hard day's work, because they estimate that Christopher beat this guy for between an hour and a half and 2 hours. So they put him in the garbage bags and threw him over into the bathtub, and guess what? Then they all three went to Christopher and Gary's parents' house to have dinner. So they all had a good dinner together. Then Christopher says, "Hey, it's dark. Let's Google and find a place to dump the victim just outside of Polk County." So they Googled and found out that Bowling Green was outside of Polk County. So they drive him to the old Bowling Green Road and turn off on the old Bowling Green Road and dump the body. They made a tactical error. They dumped him in Polk County. And that's where we found him, pursuant to a grove worker who was working in a grove. Have I told you lately that my homicide team is the absolute best in the entire nation? So now we have a person who, by the way, has a severed right hand and is cut up and beat up with no identification. Our homicide team identifies him. Not only do they identify him, they're able to find out that he owns a bicycle. And they work through their sources and through people in the community that once again cooperated and trusted us and gave us information, and voila, we found the bike. It was behind Christopher and Christina's house, or their apartment. They live in apartment A at 1830 Avenue O Southwest. And of course, they tell lies about that. Christopher ultimately gets arrested for lying during a capital crime investigation, and he's out of the picture. And now we're dealing with Gary and Christina. Gary and Christina finally confess to us. They confess that Christopher spent an hour and a half to 2 hours killing our victim. Guess what? When we seized their car, and hear me out, our victim's missing his right hand. What do we find on the car? But a zombie sticker with no right arm. We're told that what the three of them did was watched horror movies nonstop. Gary Taylor is from Winter Haven. Christopher and Christina just came from another state. Gary has not been with Christopher and Christina, but he makes the statement, another one bites the dust. We suspect them of committing more murders in the United States. And we're not saying any more now. Stand by for news.